Hi there. Today's topic could save your life, the life of others, or save you severe property damage, so please watch this. I spent 30 years as a career firefighter, and today I want to impart the experience and knowledge that I have onto you to make you more comfortable with something that could save your life or the life of others or your property. And this, in no way or form, is going to take place of professional firefighter training. What I'm going to do is try to encapsulate the most important things in terms of how it affects us as travelers. We're dealing with automotive products, and automotive products run on fuel. Most of them run on either gasoline or diesel, and those have inherent dangers to them. And I want to give you a hands-on illustration of how dangerous those products can be, but yet if you know how to deal with them, you can remain safe, but more importantly, be prepared. So this is a demonstration, and this is not something for you to do. This is just an illustration of the different fuels that our RVs and automotive products run on. Now, we have fire extinguishers on hand here. These are fire protection gloves and a Nomex jacket. I'm going to keep the demonstration very well contained. There's two fuels basically we have to be concerned with. One is gasoline. Our tow vehicles, almost all of them are going to run on gasoline or diesel. And our RVs run on number 2 diesel, biodiesel. And the properties of these two fuels are not similar in the terms of what's called flash point. And not to get highly scientific and technical, these fuels are subject to fire at different temperatures. Now, the biggest danger with gasoline is its point at which it becomes highly flammable is well below zero, down to like 40 below zero, which means until this is actually frozen in a block of ice, this will always emit flammable vapors. On the other hand, diesel fuel has enough byproducts, oil and paraffins in it, that it raises that point substantially higher, above 100 degrees. The point is, unless you heat this diesel up, it's not going to emit flammable gases. Now, obviously, an engine that can run 180 to 200 plus degrees brings that temperature up within danger zone. Certainly exhaust, doesn't matter what kind of exhaust you're running, whether it's on a pickup truck or a car or an actual big rig, you're going to have hot enough exhaust gases to raise the point that this is going to become a danger. But I want to illustrate to you the differences between these fuels just in an ambient situation. The temperature right now is around 75 degrees. The ground here is probably a lot cooler. These two vessels are very well contained. It's a small amount of fuel. It's not spread over a large area. I'm going to spark this igniter right above the diesel. And you can hear the spark triggering. Nothing's happening. We're going to set the diesel fuel aside. This is gasoline. Watch. Boom. 2 sparks. That's all it took. Now, very easily contained by suffocation. All I've done is put a non-flammable lid over this source, and the problem is gone. We can't do that on a vehicle fire. We can't just smother it with a non-combustible lid. First and foremost, when you fight a flammable liquid fire, it doesn't matter what the liquid is. If it's gasoline or diesel, do not put water on it. Unless you're trained or unless you're a firefighter with lots of water behind that, don't think that you're going to put out a flammable liquid fire with water. There's one exception. An alcohol-based fuel can very effectively be put out with water. The reason why is alcohol is water soluble. It dilutes instantly with water. And I don't know of too many RVs. In fact, I know of no RVs, and I don't know of any vehicle that we tow that run on alcohol alone. We're dealing with diesel and gasoline, both petroleum products, both do not dilute in water. So why that's important is if you try to douse this with just a standard bucket of water or even a garden hose, you're going to have a cataclysmic problem. This is going to spread the fire. It can cause a lot more damage, and it can actually injure you. So first and foremost, educate yourself in terms of an extinguisher and how to use it. And most importantly, use the proper chemical for the actual fire. Fire extinguishers are an important part of being prepared for fires. So let's talk about fires. We basically are talking about 3 different forms of fires. You've got ordinary combustibles, flammable liquid, and electrical fires. All 3 can be present in a vehicle fire, specifically like a motorhome. So it's important to be prepared for all 3 of those. And while a paper fire can be put out with water, as I talked to you before, the one thing you do not want to do is try to fight fire that's from a flammable liquid with water. Most of you have seen a fire extinguisher of this type. They're made with a chemical inside. It's dry, it's not liquid. So it comes out in a complete dust storm, and it will make a horrific mess. But the intent is to block out and layer over that flammable vapor that we talked about and showed you earlier. So it basically surrounds, covers, and smothers that fire and removes the oxygen from that flammable liquid. Most of you have heard about extinguisher. You can buy these at Home Depot, Lowe's, any Ace Hardware. You can buy them on Amazon. They're dirt cheap. I can't recommend them enough. Have one in your tow vehicle, have a couple in your motorhome, and it's important to have these readily accessible away from the potential heat problem. If I do have a problem back at the engine, I need to have a backup. So I can't necessarily get to it if it's too hot to get to. So you want to have these in different places. You don't want to have to run too far, and you don't have to get into the heat source to grab your fire extinguisher. This says classification 2A10BC. It's a dry chemical fire extinguisher. All that means, it's a measurement of how much surface area this 5-pound or this 10-pound or 3-pound or a few ounce fire extinguisher can put out. So they measure the amount of chemical that goes in here, and then that's based upon scientific studies of how much surface area it can actually smother. I will tell you this though, if you haven't used these before, it would probably benefit you to get some CERT training in your town, or ask a local fire department, where can I learn how to use a fire extinguisher, because there's some technique to it. It will catch you by surprise how fast these go away. This is another cute little product, and the reason why I like this type of a product is it's a fast hit. It's super easy, super portable, but most importantly is this is a dual agent, so it's actually great around kitchen fires. It's not going to leave a huge mess. This is a combined agent, and so it's very clean. This is an older one I kind of use as demonstration, but I really like having this type of a product in areas, especially if it's a clear chemical that doesn't produce dust, because when you have a grease fire at your stove and you employ one of these extinguishers, you're going to wish that you had had a clear agent, because this will be so far throughout your house that you'll be vacuuming and cleaning dry chemical for months after your fire. Yes, your fire has gone out. Yes, you've prevented a lot of extra damage or injury, but sometimes just a standard little grease fire can be well handled by a lid, or if it's too big for a lid to put out, spraying this across will instantly put that fire out, and you'll have a fire that's out and very, very little cleanup afterwards. Look them up. They are much more expensive though, but it's kind of worth it to have around, just 1 or 2 of these. But this is as common as a loaf of bread. You can get these on sale. You get them pretty much everywhere you look, and they're dirt cheap. So let's talk about ABC so that you're not totally confused. There's 3 classifications of fires in general for what we're worried about. A, B, and C. A is ordinary combustion, ordinary products. It's paper, clothing, just normal products. You have styrofoam products, wood products for your furniture, cloth for your furniture. Everything that's not a flammable liquid falls into that category of ordinary combustibles. That's an A. Normally A is put out with just water. A garden hose would work great. It just cools the fire, it takes the oxygen away, and fire goes out. Flammable liquids, not so easy. So that's the B class. Flammable liquids fall under the B class. The B class has to have that powdered agent, because you don't want to spread that fire, and worse, you don't want that grease fire to get
hit with a blast of water and then splash it everywhere, and then you'll have a flash of fire everywhere. And it's horrific what happens when people try to put a grease fire out with water. Don't do that. Use a dry chemical extinguisher that's rated for a B fire. And these 2A10BCs are in fact that. They're classified as putting out a 2A amount of ordinary combustibles and a 10BC amount of B and C fires. B is flammable liquid. The last one is C. That's the electrical fire. So for electrical cabinets, for wire insulation and sparking and arcing, there's two ways to get that fire to be put out. Number one is you have to de-energize the electrical system. So that means pulling your battery or throwing a breaker. Very important to de-energize something, because as long as you're providing electricity to that source of fire, chances are that fire is not going to go out. So you have to de-energize that electrical source first and foremost, and then put that fire out. Hopefully, like we do in firefighting, that's done simultaneously. Somebody's going and de-energizing the system while somebody else is attacking it with a dry chemical. Why is dry chemical so important with electrical fires? It's because if you don't use a dry chemical, you've got a conductive media hitting that fire. So imagine a big electrical short happening and somebody comes charging up and hits it with a blast of water. Water is conductive to electricity, so you have a high potential for receiving an electrical shock through that water column. That's why you should never put an electrical fire out with water. You have to use an extinguisher that's rated for C-class electrical fires. These are multi-purpose. You hear them termed as a multi-purpose extinguisher. It's because it fights A, B, and C class fires. We're really concerned with B and C, a flammable liquid and electrical. So you always want to get an extinguisher that's rated B and C, and I will tell you it's almost impossible to find an extinguisher that's not rated for all three now.
So here's a spot for an extinguisher. There's a 2A10BC extinguisher mounted right up here on the roof. If I have a vehicle fire in my toad, or even a fire that's down on the ground behind me, I can simply and easily come back and grab this extinguisher. Also, if there's a fire in the front, I can exit the motorhome, come and grab this, and then go in and start to fight the fire. So it's important to have an extinguisher in a cabinet outside in case something happens inside or something happens in the back of the vehicle. But remember, this is not just for you. This is for the people you travel with. I personally have had aid come to me from someone else to help me with a fire extinguisher. So you might be a good Samaritan. You might be going along and somebody might be in trouble. Pull over safely and get to your fire extinguisher and render aid or give them your fire extinguisher, and you can really save the day for somebody. So think about strategic locations for your fire extinguishers. So this is basically an automatic fire extinguisher. It has a chemical agent in here. It's not going to make a huge mess. But what's really unique about a generator compartment is this is a closed compartment. So when you have a closed compartment, a closed space, an agent like this in a small little canister becomes extremely effective because it penetrates the entire compartment and suffocates that fire. Or more specifically, this has a chemical in it that actually inhibits that chemical process in a fire, and it'll put the fire out within seconds. They do this in the computer rooms. In computer industry, they have a chemical agent that actually works so fast that it just actually blocks that chemical process that lets fire sustain, and it's really incredible to watch. These chemical agents can put fires out within seconds. Now, I want to talk to you about something about maintenance. This is tagged, so there's a service record on here. But really, for the user, such as myself, I make sure that I have pressure. Now, the gauges are important because it tells you that the extinguisher inside is pressurized. You'll notice this has a green range, which says, and this one it says 195 pounds. But you'll also notice on this extinguisher, it's in the red. This has been used, it's a demo unit, and there's no more pressure in it. So even if I were to pull this pin and press down, it won't discharge any chemical. If you have a commercial agent recharge this, they'll weigh it to make sure it has the proper amount. They'll shake it, and then they'll recharge it with air. So it has to be done periodically.
normal on a commercial property, we require these to be serviced every year. Quite frankly, in a residential setting, I shake it, I make sure it's, it's not caking up inside, and you can hear it move back and forth. And then I'll make sure I've got pressure inside. And I've kept these around for years and years and years and years. If you can spend the money, you can get a fixed fire extinguisher system like this. I really like this idea. I'm not a huge fan of the tubes, and not to blast the technology or that company, it has its use, but I see people misusing them. And if there's anything just as bad as having a fire extinguisher located in the wrong area, it's having an automatic fire extinguisher in the wrong area or incorrectly installed. And there's a caveat. You'll notice that I've talked about this compartment being enclosed. That makes this chemical agent extremely effective. It'll saturate this entire compartment with this chemical, which makes it extremely effective, if not 100% effective. The problem with these other tubes and these extinguishing systems that people put in, they're not thinking these out very well. They're putting them in situations that the agent can't possibly get to the fire, if you will. Say, for example, you have an inverter box and they put a tube outside of this inverter box. If that inverter box did in fact have a problem inside and that heat was going upwards and hitting the plywood of the floor, how is that agent going to hit that seat of the fire? And that's very important, is that you have an agent that hits the seat of the fire. When you fight a fire of any source, you're always going to be pointing the agent at the base of the fire, unless it's an actual chemical agent which saturates the environment. So it's important that one of two things happen. Your agent hits the base of the fire to remove the fire from the flammable source or to cool it down, or the agent's chemical has the ability to saturate that area and block that chemical process. If one of those two things doesn't happen, the fire extinguisher is going to be rendered ineffective, or at the best, a lot less effective than its desirable outcome. These things have a finite amount of agent in there. If the agent isn't properly applied, you're out of luck and the fire goes on and you're in trouble.
All right, let's talk about what we all should have in our homes and even our mobile homes. And that's a smoke detector. There's no excuse not to have a smoke detector. I don't care if it's in your house or your motorhome. You need to have these. And the reason why is these detect smoke before you even see it or smell it. And you should be putting these in your bedrooms, in the hallways, and not too far from any cooking or heat sources such as a kitchen. You can't have them right in the kitchen, just as you can't have these right above the shower, because they do react to steam. They will react to cooking products. So you don't want to have these too close because they'll just false alarm on you. This is a battery powered unit, and it's pretty simple. It's pretty cheap. It's first alert, 9-volt battery in there. You can buy these things at Home Depot for like, I don't know, $7 or $8. They are stupidly cheap, and it's stupid not to run them. In a motorhome, it's your choice. In a 45-foot, you could run 2 of them, especially if you have a divider door in there and you keep your pet on one side and you sleep on the other side. It doesn't hurt. Quite frankly, the way motorhomes are built and how small they are, one is going to suffice, but some of the bigger motorhomes have 2, one in the front, one in the rear. They should go up to the ceiling area so you can tuck them, 18 inches from the ceiling, or put them up on top of a valance or something like that. The bottom line is you want to run them because they will pre-alert you when there's a problem that you can't even see or smell. Smoke can be invisible in terms of what these photosensors will pick up. Let's talk about the other product or byproduct of combustion, which is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide has a lot of people freaked out, and there's a reason for it. Carbon monoxide is odorless, tasteless, and colorless. So it'll hit you and it can kill you without you even detecting it. So carbon monoxide detectors have been very popular. Now, carbon monoxide gas is slightly lighter than air. So in theory, with the ambient temperatures normal, this carbon monoxide should lift up off the ground and start floating to the ceiling. You'll see a lot of people question, well, do I put a carbon monoxide detector on the ceiling or on the floor? Well, actually, it's kind of like yes and yes. You should have it maybe 5 feet off the floor, but in a motorhome, once again, the area is so congested that it's really not going to make a lot of difference. The manufacturers design these things to detect that carbon monoxide as it's floating up. What they're designed to do is detect the presence of carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is a byproduct of incomplete combustion. If something is burning perfectly pure, you're not even really see the flame because everything's burning perfectly clear. That's not the case with a gas stove, a gas engine, a campfire. All those burning products produce carbon monoxide, and carbon monoxide is toxic. But it's something that you can protect yourself from very easily by buying a carbon monoxide detector. You can put it in your RV, you can put it in your home, especially concerned with the areas in which you have the potential of incomplete combustion. So if people are having wood burning stoves, gas stoves especially, any type of gas heating appliance, so for example, a gas water heater, a gas space heater, these will all produce carbon monoxide. Even propane devices, if they're not burning perfectly clean, can produce carbon monoxide. So the people have propane refrigerators, propane stoves, propane space heaters. These all have a potential to give off carbon monoxide, especially when they're not maintained. When they become dirty or they're malfunctioning, that's when you have a danger problem. So why not spend the $10 to $15 to put a carbon monoxide detector in that environment to protect your loved ones?
As I said, smoke detectors are very important to have in your house. So whether you have a battery powered or a hardwired, it's very important to have these. And as I spoke before, these are super cheap. A first alert, $6 or $7. But I want to make something very, very clear, specifically to RVs. And I'm referring to RVs that are kept in storage. Most of us are in our homes day in and day out, and we can hear that smoke detector when it issues a low battery alert. And you've all heard that obnoxious detector sound that you'll hear in the background, and it usually goes off at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, right, to alert you that the smoke detector's battery is getting low. Almost all the detectors run on a 9-volt battery, and once that 9-volt battery starts dropping down in voltage after a period of time, it's going to issue that warning chirp every now and again. So I have a question for you. What happens when your RV is in storage for a month or two at a time and that battery drops down low and starts issuing a low battery alarm and you're not anywhere near the coach? So you can't hear that. You come to your coach assuming that you're nice and protected from a smoke detector. A smoke detector that basically has a completely dead battery. So, 2 things. You should be testing these smoke detectors, just like at home. Test them. Almost all of them are going to have a test button. At bare minimum, when you get your coach out of storage, you should push this down and listen for that tone. That tone tells you that it's got a battery that's still effective. If it doesn't, you've got a dead battery. Part 2 of that would be that you replace your batteries every 6 months. The standard out there right now is every time you change your clocks, change your smoke detector battery. Just put it in your calendar, put a post-it somewhere, change smoke detector batteries. But at the bare minimum, you should be testing this every time you go to your coach and make sure that the battery works. I want to show you something pretty snazzy. I started using this in our previous motorhome and I really liked them. And there's 2 reasons why I liked them. Number 1 is they were internet connected. So I had the remote capability of watching our RV when it was in storage. And I'm talking about the Nest. They call them actually Nest Protect, but it's a smoke detector. And these actually will sniff out carbon monoxide as well. It's a pretty slick device. But what's really nice about that is they have the Nest app. And you can check that Nest smoke detector system wherever it is. In this case, we have them in our home, and I can see them right here. And I can find out if it's online. It says everything is okay. I can even tap it, and it's going to actually give me a safety check, which is pretty cool. But you can actually monitor your RV while it's in storage. You can
Testing smoke.
Okay, there you go.
Testing carbon monoxide.
Isn't that cool? So it tests the smoke function and the carbon monoxide function. So that's pretty neat. They are very expensive compared to a first alert. You can get a whole bunch of these for the price of one of those. But the functionality on those is really unique. It will actually send you an alert if there's something wrong with that smoke detector, or God forbid, it detects a problem in your motorhome that's being stored. Also, when you're out and about on your vacation travels, it will alert you if you're out and you have a pet inside that you want to guard. It will alert you to a problem in your motorhome through your app on your phone. Now, as I've talked before about technology, is don't get caught off guard with technology when you don't have internet, because these devices need to have internet connection and it has to be up and running, including your phone. So if you got a weak cellular system somewhere out in the boonies somewhere, or you don't have your phone with you, it's not going to do you any good to spend the money for a device that has remote monitoring capability if you can't actually connect to the internet. You have to be able to connect to the internet. That doesn't mean that the smoke detector itself is going to be rendered useless. It's just that the big feature of that particular remote capability is not going to be useful until you get back to an internet signal. So, all that said, you have to make that decision if a $150 detector is worthwhile to you versus a $7 detector. So, with so many things, maintenance is paramount to having something function correctly. I don't care if it's your engine or, in this case, a smoke detector. So there you go. If you have any questions, please drop them below in the comments. I really appreciate all the positive comments. And as always, travel safe, and I look forward to giving you more content as soon as I possibly can. Thank you.